Y'all are midgets, and you don't know it. At least that's how I see things, because I am tall. But there's more to me than just being tall, because like all of you guys, I'm a complex human being. And if in life we don't get beyond the surface appearance, then we're just going to have a lot of conflict after conflict after conflict. So we really need to get beyond the surface into who people really are. I'm going to get you one step closer to knowing the people around you by telling you about me. Not only have I had to live with myself my entire life, but I do a lot of introspection. So I think I know myself pretty well. And I'm going to use an analogy. I am like a tree. I'm like a flowering tree, and I'm like an exotic tree. So I'm like a flowering tree. I'm like a dogwood, and I'm like an apple tree. Now when I say I'm like a dogwood, I don't mean I'm drop dead gorgeous. No. Instead, I mean that I have an appreciation for artistic beauty. I was brought up in a very strong musical household. Each one of us kids, all 5 of us, was forced to play the piano. It's a good thing, I assure you, and we each also played another instrument. And when you are doing that music, you have to be really adaptable. You have to adapt to other students you're playing with, the music, the teachers that you're working with. So like an English dogwood, I can adapt to the conditions around me. An English dogwood can adapt to acidic and basic soil conditions. So I am like a dogwood. Now after dogwoods flower, they're kind of useless. They just sit there and have leaves. How boring is that? Unlike an apple tree, which after it blooms, it bears fruit. For me, the fruit of being a musician has been patience. So unlike a willow tree, which can grow up to 10 feet a year, I like to take my time and be patient in the moment. My family members will tell you that I'm not patient all the time, but I do try to. So like Ralph Waldo Emerson says, adopt the pace of nature, her secret is patience. I go out into nature and try to trim up my roses, trim up my trees, and just focus on the moment, be in nature. So I am like a dogwood, and I'm like an apple tree. I'm like a flowering tree. While flowering trees are pretty, come spring, they're everywhere. I mean, just look outside. And something that piques your interest more is an exotic tree, specifically a baobab and a bonsai. If you don't know what a baobab tree is, it's the tree that Rafiki lives in The Lion King. And if that doesn't do it for you, it's an African tree which has a really, really thick trunk, and it looks like God pulled a practical joke on us, because it looks like he reached down, pulled them up, and sucked their head in the ground, and their roots are dangling in the air. Now, it also has a fruit called the monkey fruit, and apparently it's really sweet, and it's about the size of my head. Now, I'm not saying that it's okay to try to break open my head and see if it tastes good, because that's just gross. Instead, what I'm saying is that I have an appreciation for artistic beauty. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. I appreciate the really old. Some baobabs have been known to be 1,000 years old, and a lot of them live several hundred years old. So, like, I really, really like old cellos, 300-year-old cellos, and old houses. I used to live in a house that was built in 1880. Those things have just so much character and personality. It's really great. While I would kind of like to have a baobab in my front yard because it's so cool, I can't because it's too tall, unlike a bonsai, which is really, really small. Now, a bonsai will start out about yay big with a little flat pot, and the bonsai trainers will pull it this way or that and prune off little branches until it actually only gets about yay big, but it'll look like a really, really old tree. The bonsai trainers, when they're doing that, are in the spirit of Proverbs 22:6, which says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not turn from it." Like that, my parents tried to do that with me. In their band programs, PE programs, they were teachers. And the motto that really has stuck with me to this day is, perfection is the goal, excellence will be tolerated. Sometimes that makes me a little OCD, but for the most part, it's good. So I'm like a baobab, and I'm like a bonsai. I'm like a flowering tree, and I'm like an exotic tree. I am like a tree. So by now, I hope you're one step closer to really knowing the people around you by knowing that I am not just tall, but I'm a complex human being like all of you are.